Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrashakacharya Ashtotra Sata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrashakacharya Ashtotra Sata Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinada Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Gangama Yamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Shri Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Naranarayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering of the service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with the transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So today we will be studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter number 17. We will be doing two verses, verse number 21 and 22 together. 21. Yeah, you wanna just. Yeah, so today we'll be reading both the verses, number 21 and 22. 21 does not have a purport, and I'll just read it myself. And 22 has a purport. We will read that verse together. So 21, I'll just read it myself. Yeah. तां वीक्षया दुस्साहजवं रणत्काञ्चननूपुरं वैजयन्त्या सृजाजुष्टम् अंसनस्यत् महागदम्. Hiranyaksha's temper was difficult to control. He had anklets of gold tinkling about his feet. He was adorned with a gigantic garland, and he rested his huge mace on one of his shoulders. Verse number 22. I'll just first read the word to word. Please repeat along with me. Mano Virya. Okay, this word is like a combination of two words. It is Vara and Utsiktam. Vara, so combination is Varotsiktam. Varotsiktam. Arshanyam. Akuto. Bayam. Bita. Nililire. Devas. Tarkasya. Takshya. Trashta. Ivahayaha. Manovirya varotsiktam. Arsanyam akuto bayam. Bita ninilyere devas. Traksha trasta ivahayaha. Manovirya varotsiktam. Arshanyam akuto bayam. Bita ninilyere devas. Trakshatrasta ivahayaha. Manovirya varotsiktam. Arshanyam akuto bayam. Bita ninilyere devas. Trakshatrasta ivahayaha. Tarshatrashta ivahayaha. Manovirya varoshistam. Arshanyam akuto bayam. Bita ninilyere devas. Tarshatrashta ivahayaha. Manovirya varoshistam. Ashanyam akuto bayam Bitane nilyire deva Tashatasta ivahayaha. Mataji. Manovirya varostistam Ashrinyam akuto bayam Bitane nilyire deva Takshatasta ivahayaha. Manovirya varostiktam Arshanyam akuto bayam Bitane nilyire deva Takshatasta ivahayaha. Manahavirya, by mental and bodily strength. Vara, by the boon. Utsiktam, proud. Arshanyam, not able to be checked. Akutabayam, fearing no one. Bitaha, frightened. Ninilyire, hid themselves. Devaha, the demigods. Taksha, Garuda. Trashtaha, frightened of. Iva, like. Ahayaha, snakes. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jai. By mental and bodily strength, as well as the boon conferred onto him, he made his upon him made him proud. He feared death at the hands of no one, and there was no checking him. The gods, therefore, were seized with fear at his very sight, and they hid themselves, even as the snakes hide themselves for fear of Garuda. Let's repeat the translation together. His mental and bodily strength, as well as the boon conferred onto him, made him proud. He feared death at the hands of no one, and there was no checking him. The gods, therefore, were seized with fear at his very sight, and they hid themselves, even as snakes hide themselves for fear of Garuda. Hiranyaksha. 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 Yes. Purport. The Asuras are generally strong-built, as described here. Therefore, their mental condition is very sound, and their prowess is also extraordinary. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, having received the boon that they would not be killed by any other living entity within this universe, were almost immortal, and thus they were completely fearless. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Ulmitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrujatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanmitamscha Namaom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Krupa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you everyone for coming for this class, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I seek the blessings of all the devotees assembled here. So in the previous verse also, we have seen in the verse number 15, there also the Kumaras were mentioned as fearless. Of course, the Kumaras were fearless because they were aware of the fact of what's happening around them. Despite of all the calamities in the nature happening around them, everybody was fearful, but except the Kumaras. And in this verse, in the current verse, number 22, also it is described as these demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, are also fearless. Like both the Kumaras are fearless and the demons are also fearless. So what is the difference? What's the difference between the fearlessness of the Kumaras versus the fearlessness of these two demons? Just like in the classroom, sometimes we see that those students who are like well prepared for the exam, they are also fearless. And at the same time, those who are not prepared, or they're going to know that they're going to fail anyway, or they have some other arrangements where they don't have to give the exam, they are also fearless, right? So this is like an analogy, because this fearlessness is either based on the knowledge, or that fearlessness can be also based upon the ignorance. And the fearlessness of the Kumaras is actually based on the knowledge. So they are aware of what's happening around them. So they were fearless. On the other side, the fearlessness of these two demons is actually in ignorance, because they are confident. Why they are confident? They are confident that they are not going to die, because they have a boon. They have a boon from Lord Brahma that they're not going to die and they're going to be immortal. So because death is also like an exam, correct? Because if you know that you're not going to give an exam, then you're not fearless as well. So in this way, these two demons are fearless, not in the mode of in the knowledge, but they are in ignorance. Because people are fearful of many things, but out of all the things which they fear, the biggest fear is actually the death. Because no matter how strong and how fearless and how arrogant a person may be throughout his life, but in his old age, usually people kind of soften up, they become more humble and they become more fearful, because they are fear of death, because they are fear that they may lose everything. Because you can see the human mind can take good or bad. It can be prepared, but what the human mind cannot take is the uncertainty. And the biggest uncertainty is the death. Because the death, you don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and what will happen after the death, and what is going to happen, to his family, friends, and wealth. It's an uncertainty. So the death is the biggest uncertainty. It's uncertainty, and that is actually a cause for the deepest and the biggest fear anyone can ever have. Because sometimes we see that materially, when they're young, they may be expert in many things, They may be strong, they may be, fearless, they may be very expert in getting the things what they want to get done, And that's actually an attractive quality, Being a fearless, is actually an attractive quality. Even that is one of the qualities of Krishna also, that, he is Abhayadatta, means he offers fearlessness to those souls who are surrendered unto him. And such a person who is having this fearlessness is actually an attractive person. And a woman who is having such a husband who is fearless, and a child who is having such a father who is fearless, is actually like a role model, They look upon such a person, and it is an attractive feature. But however, at the time of death, we can see that the same person, no matter how fearless he was through his entire life, but at the time of death, he will be fearful, because he is fearful, because that is the nature of soul. The nature of soul is Sachit Ananda. To live eternally is a quality of the soul. But however, when a person dies, that is not an intrinsic quality of the soul which brings upon the fear. In my, I can think of one example, in my own case, my grandfather, he was he was like a fearless person, everyone used to, consider him like a hero. But he passed away 3 years ago, and we were kind of witnessing him, what he was going through. And it was completely opposite, the person who was like fearless throughout his life, but at the end of his life, he was a completely different person. So we can see how death, no matter how fearless you are at the end of life, it makes you fearful. And in the same way, we can see these two demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, because of the boon they got of immortality, that they are fearless. But little do they know that the Lord is going to trick them somehow, and then they're going to get killed eventually. And the same thing is true with the Ravana also. Even though he got many benedictions that he is going to be immortal, and then he led a life of as if he's never going to die. But ultimately, he was also killed by Lord Rama. But of course, in the case of Ravana, it is little different, because usually the demons are considered like some uneducated or foolish. But Ravana was not like that actually. No, Ravana was actually a very knowledgeable person. It is said that he studied all the 4 Vedas, he knows all the Shastras, and also is actually a good administrator. In the Lanka, it was said that Lanka was actually a prosperous kingdom. Ravana was a very good administrator. And he's also a very knowledgeable person. He has studied all the Vedas and the Shastras. But still, he is considered as a demon. Why is it so? A person who is a good administrator and who is very knowledgeable, who has studied all the Vedas, and he's still considered as a demon. And Ravana actually, and all these demons, we can see that they have undergone a lot of austerities, sacrifices, and study all the Vedas, and still considered demon. The reason is because ultimately they want to satisfy themselves. It's not that they want to satisfy Krishna or Lord Vishnu, but ultimately they want to satisfy themselves. So that is the biggest difference. Even though they have the Vedic knowledge, but still it was not very much helpful. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, he says that according to the 3 modes of nature, there are 3 kinds of knowledge, action, and performer of action. And Krishna says, then that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without the knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. But that action which is performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and enacted from a sense of falsehood is called the action in mode of passion. And that action performed in illusion, disregard of the spiritual injunctions, and without the concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. And the worker who is attached to the work and the fruits of the work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. So in this way, we can see that these demons, even though they are knowledgeable, they perform a lot of austerities, but because they are trying to satisfy their own senses, that ultimately they have to meet their death. And even though they are having this knowledge of the Vedas, but that knowledge is actually in the mode of ignorance. And as a result, whatever the actions they performed, either it's in the mode of ignorance or in the mode of passion. So here, in the previous verse, we have seen how Hiranyaksha, the brother, he's, like an ideal brother, trying to follow the instruction of his elder brother, trying to, protect him at all times. And we have also seen the example of Ravana, that how he's like an ideal administrator. So for someone, apparently it may look like these are some sort of like an ideal appreciable qualities, right? And and even today, there are some people, in Lanka, they still worship Ravana. There are people who still worship these demons because they considered him as an ideal person, who has some ideal qualities, that he was a good administrator, he was an ideal brother, he was an ideal husband, so many ideal things. But but the Shastras just describe them to be a demons. I know when I first heard this, that some people actually worship Ravana, and then they don't respect Rama. Then I was kind of surprised that what kind of a person would admire Ravana. And then I was trying to hear some of their arguments. One of their arguments they say is that some of the reasons they say is that Ravana, actually these demons, they are a self-made people. They struggle in their life, and they earned what they all their prosperities, and now they're enjoying the fruits of their actions. So what's wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with that. But the problem with such an understanding is that, as Archita Prabhu mentioned in the previous class, these people, they may be robbing, they may be stealing other persons, for whatever reasons they may consider. But when you rob from those people, they're going to kill you, right? They're going to kill you. So that is the thing, that is all relative. It's like a double standard, And in the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 29th chapter and 26th verse, it says, Atmanamsha paranyashyati yaha karoti antarodaram tasya binna drishyo mrutyur vidade bhayam ulbanam. By the blazing fire of death, I cause the fear to whoever makes the least discrimination between himself and other living entities because of differential outlook. It's called as Binna Drishya. Binna Drishya means having a differential outlook, means having like a double standard. Like you have one thing for yourself, but you have a different thing for the others, right? For my family and my friends, I give all protection, but for the others, I don't care. For myself, I just, do the best things, but, when I'm giving a charity to others, I just give which is of the, the lowest quality. For my house, I spend like thousands of dollars, but for others, when I have to donate, I just donate like $10. Right? So that is called as Binna Drishya, means having a differential outlook, having a double standard. So that is actually a demonic quality, that basically shows a lack of compassion. Correct? Even though you have a compassion, but your compassion is subjective. You have only compassion for, for those people who, whom you think yourself, but those people whom you do not identify with yourself, then, you exhibit all these demonic qualities. Of course, in this previous yugas, we can see like, ideal demon, like, 100% bad qualities, 0% good qualities, like Hiranyakashipu. And we also see like a pure devotees, like 100% good qualities, like, Prahlad. But of course, in the Kali Yuga, it's all kind of mixed up, In the same person, you will see that some percentage, divine qualities and some percentage demonic qualities. It's like having a good dog and a bad dog. And now it's up to us whether you want to feed this good dog or a bad dog, right? So, as I mentioned previously, this fear is basically, in my previous class I mentioned that this fear is basically a product of ignorance, avidya. In the 3rd canto, 20th chapter, verse number 18, it talks about the pancha kleshas, the 5 kleshas. It begins from ignorance, right? And there's like different manifestations, and the last and the final manifestation is actually fear. And this pancha kleshas is actually something which you can even find in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras also. Like, as you all know that there are Shad Darshanas, the 6 core philosophies, which is Purva Mimamsa, or Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya and Yoga of Patanjali. Sometimes we see some similarities in these different philosophies also, and this is one such example, these Pancha Kleshas. Of course, in the Bhagavatam, it uses different terms, and in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it means the same thing, but they just use different words. In the Bhagavatam, it says tamas. From tamas comes moha, from moha comes mahamoha, and from mahamoha comes tamisra, and from tamisra comes andhatamisra. So these are the 5 panchakleshas. And of course, something which is similar in the Yoga Sutras, over there it describes as avidya, ashmita, raga, dvesha and abhinivesha. So it all starts from the ignorance, which is called as avidya. Avidya is basically, it is described as anadi avidya, means beginningless ignorance. Anadi avidya yuktasya purishashatma vedanam. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 22nd chapter, verse number 10. It says, Because a person who has been covered by ignorance since time immemorial is not capable of effecting his own self-realization. There, there must be some other personality who is in factual knowledge of the absolute truth and can impart this knowledge onto him. So that is where it starts from the Anadi Avidya. It's because of its ignorance one basically misidentifies with his body, and he misidentifies his body as oneself. And when a person believes that one is this body but not the spirit soul, that is called as moha or illusion. And from this illusion comes the attachment. There are some things which he likes and he's attached towards that, and there are some things which he does not like and he develops an aversion to it. So from the moha comes raga and dvesha. Raga means desire and dvesha means anger or hatred. And when a person loses an object which is very dear to him, then that is a cause for the fear, which is abhinivesha or andatamisra. So in this way we can see how the fear arises all the way from the ignorance. And what is the solution? The solution is also given in the Bhagavatam itself in the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 37. It says, Bhayam dvitiya abhiniveshashta syat. Bhayam means fear. Dvitiya means identifying in something or meditating on something which is other than the Lord. And abhiniveshata means because of absorption. Syat means will arise. So that is the root cause of the fear. And what is the solution? When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord and he forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord, this is bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency of illusion called as Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and his very life and soul. So this is a solution. What is the solution? The solution is basically to take the shelter of a guru and serve him. And also, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita also, that tad vidhi paranipatena pariprashnena sevaya means try to learn, acquire this knowledge by approaching a guru and by submissively hearing from him and by rendering service unto him. Of course, one may be wondering, why is Krishna emphasizing on these two things, like submissiveness and performing, and rendering service unto him? Because from our common experience, we have seen that, like for a student, when a student goes to a school, for him to acquire the knowledge, he doesn't really do all these things, right? I mean, he doesn't service, perform, submissive, or, perform some service to a teacher, but still he's able to acquire the knowledge, right? So why is it that Krishna emphasizing on the submissiveness and the service aspect? Does it mean that without submissiveness and service one cannot acquire knowledge? Because we must understand that there's a difference between the material knowledge and the spiritual knowledge. The material knowledge is something which you just understand or acquire by your intellectual, prowess. But a spiritual knowledge is not like that. That is why even Ravana, even though he is a very knowledgeable person, he was still a demon. So it's just a knowledge, because the divine knowledge is not something which you acquire. The divine knowledge is something which is revealed within the heart. That is why even in the Guru Puja we sing Divya Jnana Hriday Prakashito, which means by the mercy of the Guru, this divine knowledge is revealed within the heart. And that is how the spiritual, the dynamics, the spiritual knowledge works. It is not something which is acquired, but it is something which is revealed within the heart of the disciples. And as a result of this knowledge, this fear is something which is destroyed in the heart. Of course, the other advantage or the other thing when one takes a shelter of a guru is that by taking the shelter of a guru and accepting the initiation process, all his previous karmas are actually destroyed. And by destruction of these previous karmas, that is why sometimes people get bad dreams, right? This bad dreams is basically nothing but it's due to the prarabdha karma, that some sinful activities which is performed in his previous life. That is why people get some bad dreams. But however, a disciple, a person, when he takes a shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and takes an initiation, I can tell you from a practical experience that there won't be any more bad dreams. That is actually a proof that all these previous sinful activities, sins are actually destroyed. But of course, if a disciple continues, with his, performs to continue a sinful activity and creates a new karma, which is like, kriyamana karma, then of course that will add to his karma, and then, he may not get the full benefit out of it. And in the Bhagavatam also it is said that the evil spirits wander only where people do not engage in hearing and chanting the names of Bhagavan Krishna. Such hearing subdues the influence of ghostly beings. And even in the Brihan Naradiya Purana also it is stated, when people are devoted to the worship of Vishnu, there are no obstacles. There are no disturbances from the king, thieves and sickness, ghosts, hobgoblins and various classes of demons known as Kushmandas, Grahas, Balagrahas, Dakinis, and even the Rakshasas do not trouble the worshippers of the Lord Achyuta. And we can see, practical examples like, even the life of Prahlad, even though Hiranyak, his father tried to, kill him in different ways, but, he was not to be killed. And in the Vishnu Purana, it explains why Prahlad was actually, why these elephants, whom which was sent by his father, was not able to kill Prahlad. And Prahlad says that it is not by my own power that the tusks of these elephants, which are as hard as thunderbolts, got smashed. It is only by the mercy of the Lord Janardana that all these great calamities are destroyed. But of course, sometimes, by reading all these statements, sometimes we may see that, even though devotees also undergo sufferings, and a question may be raised that are these just, some exaggerations or like some arthavada. Actually, this is not arthavada, and for the reason, our acharyas have given like different reasons for these things. And there are like 5 reasons why these statements in the scriptures are actually not arthavadas. There are 5 reasons which I can just briefly describe. Is that why the devotee sometimes has to undergo some sufferings. The first reason is that even though the Bhakti Devi is potent and the Bhakti Devi is capable of removing all these obstacles, but usually she does not manifest these things generally. Only very rarely such Bhakti Devi exhibits these exceptional things. That is because you must understand that because the bhakti is something which is confidential. Even the great devotees, Mahajanas, they don't like easily display, their bhakti. Because otherwise, even the ordinary people would be, attracted to this bhakti, and this integrity of the path would be, compromised. Let's say, for example, that, that everyone who steps into this temple becomes free from all the diseases. Let's say if it happens like, then what's going to happen? Like you'll see like a long line tomorrow. All the people standing in front of the temple, because they know that once they step into the temple, they're going to be freed from all the diseases, right? So they're not coming here to, perform, do bhakti. They are just coming for some, material gains, like, like some demigod worship. But that is not the aim of bhakti. The aim of bhakti is not to, remove these diseases or, some help you in your economical development. And also the devotees are actually humble. It's not that, they want to display all these qualities. Just like, when a rich person has like a diamond, like a precious diamond, he's not going to display to everybody, right? It's something which is confidential. He's just going to keep it secret. And on the other hand, we see that actually devotees pray for more difficulties. It's not that they're trying to get rid of the difficulties. That like, we see the prayers of Queen Kunti, how she's praying for more difficulties so that, she can get the mercy of the Lord even more. So in this way, we can see that how devotees, by protected by the Lord, becomes fearless. And even Maharaj Parikshit, who was about to die in the 7 days, that he is not afraid of death anymore. And he says that, "O Brahmanas, just accept me as completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, who also accept me in that way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created bite me at once. I only desire that you will continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. I fear neither Takshaka nor any form of death, since I have become established in the fearless, liberated state of immediate Brahman realization revealed by you. Grant me your blessings, O sage, that while restraining my speech and fixed my mind free from all predispositions towards the desire. O Adokshada, I may give up my vital life force. So, in this way, we can see how these devotees of the Lord become fearless. And sometimes we also see these demons, sometimes they speak philosophy. But, even though they speak philosophy, you'll never see a demon being fearless of the death. How much ever the demons may speak, but when it comes to the death, it's only the devotees can be fearless, not the demons. So, this is a difference between the fearlessness of a devotee versus the fearlessness of a demon. Okay, thus I like to conclude my class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay. So, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Very nice class. My question is, if we don't come to the stage of completely pure devotional service to get Krishna Prem, topmost pure devotee, until that we are still experience this question, different level of fear, even if you're in a stage of, a Shakti or Ruchi, you still feel fear. Because you don't have enough, if you're completely pure devotee, you know everything about Krishna, it's not fear anymore, because you have full knowledge about Krishna. Until you realize your, you can say Swarup, Swarup Siddhi, you are always fear. Is it like that? Different level of fear, you always feel that kind of fear.
Okay, what I can say is that, to the degree to which, your avidya is removed, right? To that degree you become fearless. That's what I can say in short, but maybe some other devotees can add further on to that. So his question was that, this fearless condition, is it only possible for a pure devotee, like, who is like, fully, surrendered, or is it, what about those devotees who are practitioners? So what about them? Is that correct?
Yeah, this is question. If you're not on the level of to be pure devotee completely, so even if you're devotee, you develop different gradation of fear.
Yes.
You have that in heart until you get, position
so
where
that is
completely
true.
pure devotee is not fear anymore.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like to the degree to which your avidya is removed, and to the degree to which you are surrendered to the Lord, so that to that degree your fear is removed, correct? So because fear it's based on knowledge, correct? So once you are aware of something, then you are no longer fearful. And of course there is also a difference between theoretical knowledge and realized knowledge. You may theoretically know something, but to realize it's a different thing. Then you become Tattvadarshi. Achita Prabhu can add few more.
The difference is that if you are on the path of devotional service, fear will make you surrender to Krishna more. Chaturvadabajanti mam jana sukritina arjuna. If you have sukriti, then even if you're not approaching Krishna for the best reason, out of full knowledge, avidya is all gone, still you have some material attachments, but because you're pious, you take shelter of Krishna.
Yeah.
On the path of devotional service, there are two major tests that will come. One test is when everything is completely okay, you have more money than you can spend in your lifetime, you have good health. Unfortunately, in that situation, many neophyte devotees fall down. The other extreme is when things are going really bad. You're unhealthy, you have no money, things are falling on your head like anything. Krishna, Krishna, please help me. So fear in the devotion, in the neophyte stage is actually not a bad thing, because it makes us take more shelter of Krishna.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I think you quote that verse about fearlessness. Vayan duitiya vinavesha tasya. In that verse it describes that when one identifies with the body at that moment,
Yes.
and with external energy, fear comes. So there will be no question of ruchi or this and that.
Yeah.
About if you're still identifying with the body, that's the basic. One time someone asked Srila Prabhupada, in Prabhupada Memories we hear that, actually Siddhanta Prabhu, he was present when someone said, this person raised his hand, he asked question to Prabhupada, well, what do you feel when you chant Hare Krishna? He says, no fear. He took full protection. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions, one who accepts Krishna as the maintainer, as the master, as the provider, as everything. What is the question of fear?
Yes.
Full surrenders, saranagati.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a nice class. I just wanted to mention that as long as there is a desire for any kind of material pleasure, there will be fear, because those pleasures can be lost.
Yeah.
And as long as one can lose something which gives value and meaning and purpose to his life, there will be fear. But if one has no desire for any sense pleasure, sense gratification, ego gratification, but has only desire to please Krishna, then there would be no fear, because he has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And the only thing he has to lose is Krishna, but Krishna is always there.
Yeah.
He's always in the heart.
Yes.
So one can always take shelter of Krishna in the heart. But as long as one is still attached to material sense pleasure, there will always be fear. So we can get rid of fear if you get rid of sense pleasure. And if we become more focused upon giving pleasure to Krishna, we will lose the fear. And he will take it from us, because he gives himself to us in that process.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Take it later. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Nirendra Shamid Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Is that okay? Thank you. Is that cool? Thank you.